Good morning. Welcome to Able United FAQ webinar. Before we get started, I want to introduce our American Sign Language interpretation as well as Spanish language. So I'll turn it over to them to give you instructions on how to access those tools.
Gracias. Thank you. Good morning. I will first give these instructions in Spanish and then in English. Buenos días. Voy a dar esas instrucciones primero en español y después en inglés. Mi nombre es María Angélica, mis pronombres son ella y ellex, y hoy estaremos proveyendo interpretación en español con mi colega Flavia con MARP Language Services y también se estará proveyendo interpretación en lengua de signos americana. Para tener acceso a la interpretación, para poder escuchar, si pueden, en español la presentación de hoy, y si están conectados en su computador, les pedimos que por favor hagan clic en el globo abajo de su pantalla donde dice interpretación y ahí eligen el español. Ahora, si ustedes están conectados desde un teléfono, por favor toquen los 3 puntos abajo a mano derecha de la pantalla del teléfono que dice más. Ahí eligen interpretación de idiomas y eligen español. Y arriba, a mano derecha, presionan finalizado. Vamos a poner estas instrucciones en el chat. Si en algún momento tienen alguna pregunta o dificultad con la interpretación, por favor déjenoslo saber y con gusto les apoyaremos. Gracias. Good morning. My name is Maria Angelica. My pronouns are she and they. And today we will be providing interpretation into Spanish with my colleague Flavia with MARP Language Services. And also our colleagues will be providing interpretation in American Sign Language. If you would like to listen in Spanish today, if you are able, and you're connecting from a computer, you can click on the globe at the bottom of the screen that says interpretation. There you choose Spanish. And if you're joining from a phone, you can tap the 3 little dots at the lower right-hand corner of your phone that say more. There you choose language interpretation, you choose Spanish, and then at the top right, you tap done. I'm going to paste these instructions in the chat. If anyone has any questions or difficulties with interpretation at any point, please let us know and we will be happy to support you. Thank you so much. Gracias.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, our ASL interpreters. I appreciate everybody's time this morning as we discussed frequently asked questions about ABLE accounts, as well as talk high level about Able United with one of our brand ambassadors, Spencer Blomquist. So before we get any further, and just to get a feeling on everybody's familiarity with ABLE accounts, we're going to go ahead and launch a poll on how familiar are you with Able United. Very familiar, maybe you have an account, or this is your first webinar and you're not familiar at all, or maybe you perused the website and just have some more questions and you're somewhat familiar. So I'll give everybody a few more seconds to answer that question. All right, hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to answer that. And this will help guide today's discussion as well. We'll go ahead and close that poll. Let's see what the, all right, so about 23% of you are very familiar. The majority of you, 2/3 of you are somewhat familiar, and around 10% not familiar. So that's very helpful. To kind of see where everybody is at. And then also wanted to remind you as we go through today's discussion, if you didn't ask your question during the registration process, we received 64 questions from that and a couple from online as well. Feel free to use the question and answers box to relay your question you have for us. And so I'm going to go ahead at this time before we dive into our next poll question. Just talk a little bit with Spencer here. So I am happy to welcome Spencer. Spencer, welcome to a webinar. Glad to have you, Able United Brand Ambassador.
Hey,
how are
thanks
you
for
today?
having me, John. How are you doing today? I'm doing fantastic. Actually, it's been a busy morning, but we're here to join everybody and talk a little bit more about Able United.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. So my name is John Finch. I serve as the director of Florida's ABLE program, ABLE United. And with our program, knowing that we're a part of a state, it's interesting, we're housed under Florida prepaid. But really the program, the day in and day out is usually run by myself. And so knowing that I can't be everywhere in the great state of Florida, we enlist individuals who actually have ABLE accounts, or parents or family members who might run an ABLE account for their loved one. And so Spencer, we recruited him for, how long have you been a brand ambassador to now, Spencer?
Probably right before COVID, so 2000, probably 3 years.
Okay, great. And so so Spencer's out in the Pensacola area, and we utilize him to help spread the word in his area of the state where I can't make it to, and he could get out there and tell us about it. But just a little bit of the background, Spencer, how did you learn about ABLE accounts and ABLE United?
So I first learned about ABLE United just being involved with the disability community. I worked doing home automation systems for vocational rehabilitation, installing them for people living with disabilities. And, you always come across people that are, discussing financial ways to live with a disability and still have a sustainable financial lifestyle. And ABLE United was a topic of one of the conversations we had. And, I heard about it. I'm like, wow, this is too good to be true. Is this real? And, after going so many years without anything like it, I probably didn't find out about it till about a year or so later, after. I've been a member ever since, and it's been helping me tremendously in my day-to-day life.
That's awesome. Yeah, ABLE accounts really started 17 years ago when the piece of legislation was first put out on a federal level, when parents sitting around a dining room table saying, why isn't there a way for me to start putting funds away for my child that has a diagnosis or a disability like I can my typical child? And so through their hard work and advocacy, this piece of legislation, the Achieving a Better Life Experience Act, passed in 2014. Each state then had to pass their own legislation to get it set up in their state. And so here in Florida, we passed that in 2015 and launched July 1 of 2016. And so, since then, we've been trying to get the word out. And it's been great to know that you've learned about it after the fact and said, hey, this is something for me. And knowing that you loved it so much that you were willing to step on and help us as an ambassador. Can you explain a little bit of your experience doing that and some of the favorite events that you've attended?
Yes, as a brand ambassador, I've had the opportunity to definitely attend a couple events in the community, some that I've done on my own, and then some other ones that you guys have provided me that I wasn't aware of in our own community. So we've been able to take advantage of those and sit down with family members and participants that are actually going to benefit from this program, because with the assistance model that's being provided without ABLE United, you're allowed to own a house, but you can only have $2,000 in the bank to fix something if it breaks. So you can have Medicaid, let's just say, and own a house, own a vehicle, but $2,000 is the limit you could have in the bank. So I can tell you from my own personal experience, a roof does not cost $2,000. And when you're on a government assistance, any kind of loans you get are based on your income and what you have. So it's impossible to get financing for something, if your income is limited to, let's just say, $20,000 a year. It's impossible to get financing for things. So being able to finance yourself just through responsible saving and makes you a little bit more financially independent. And when something happens, you can be prepared to face those challenges without, worrying about it too much or having to sell any kidneys or anything like that.
Nothing that drastic. No, that's a good point, right? Because typically when individuals think of public benefit programs such as supplemental security income, Medicaid, I know one of the questions we had was FAFSA. and we'll get to that question, really, almost keeps the individual to be impoverished and to live in poverty, not having more than $2,000. And so it's good to know that, with an ABLE account, this online tax advantage savings and investment account, it allows individuals to actually save more than $2,000 in these types of accounts, and be able to save for unexpected needs or whatever the future may behold. And I know that was something that you experienced, right? Where you might have been putting money away for some kind of future expense and then had some unexpected home repairs. Can you share a little bit about how an ABLE account has assisted you in that situation?
Well, life is full of those. So, it's been more
Unfortunately,
than
yeah.
just one. I'd probably say about a dozen times it's come in handy so far. And just to name a few of them, the first significant one was approximately 2.5 years ago now. Hurricane Sally hit my part of Florida. I live here in the Florida Panhandle, Pensacola, and we got hit with Hurricane Sally, and we were pretty much devastated with the damage that occurred. Our house was flooded, wind damage. So we had water coming in through the roof and through the windows and doorways. So during that time, insurance companies, obviously, we all know, are not fast moving, and they're gonna, fight everything until the end. So having my Able United account allowed me to cover the expenses that I needed immediately. I needed my vehicle was flooded. I needed a rental car. Geico, my rental car company, only covered $35 a day for a rental vehicle, and anything that's related to a disability is going to cost more than the average price for something of an able-bodied person. So that rental vehicle, it was $120 a day. I was able to take the money out from my ABLE account to fund some housing, fund all the extra stuff I had to buy out of pocket until we were able to get reimbursed from our insurance. But everything from Home Depot, countless trips to Home Depot, all that stuff. I needed the funds from somewhere, and fortunately, I hadn't had my ABLE account for several years at this point, so I was able to save a significant sum of emergency fund to have in the event that something like this happened. And that's just one of the instances where it's come in handy. Not to mention all the other things like car battery going out on you one day. Just random things that happen in day-to-day life definitely are going to impact your ability to rectify these situations as they come along.
That's a great point. And I like how your idea of, putting aside money when you can to be able to save, because, the future is always, undetermined, right? We don't know what's going to be around the corner. But as we start a new year, I can't believe we're almost wrapping up the first month of 2023. A lot of time people have at this time of the year resolutions or some kind of idea of what they want to achieve. And so I want to put this poll up real quick on, do you have a financial plan, right? Although I'm not a certified financial planner, I don't believe Spencer is either. But one of the questions people usually have is at this time of the year, how can I start changing, just do something different to make sure I have that money? So I don't know if that poll question is available or not. Do you have a financial plan, audience? Are you prepared for whatever tomorrow may bring? Sometimes it's, it could be a lofty goal, and we'll talk a little bit about how an ABLE account can be used as a great way to have family and friends, help individuals save. But if people are working or have the ability, they could set up recurring contributions to their account. So a great part of ways of how you can use an ABLE account along with whatever financial plan you may have. So give everybody a couple more seconds to answer this, and then we'll see what the results are. All right, I see those questions coming in as well, so thank you for doing that. So go ahead and answer that real quick and see what the results are. 50-50, right? So hopefully this webinar will kind of inspire you to see how can an ABLE account be part of your financial goals, whether that be, maybe it is saving for a down payment for a home. or maybe you're just looking to say, hey, I could put some money aside for whatever the future may hold, and not really have an idea of a financial plan. So with that, I will leave Spencer with one more question, and then we'll dig into some of these FAQs. You know, when you think about the importance of saving, and as you mentioned, kind of your experiences so far, I mean, what do you tell others when you're out talking about ABLE accounts and why it's important to kind of save?
Yeah, I just tell them that listen to Dave Ramsey or something. I mean, have a 6-month emergency fund, be able to sustain your lifestyle if something catastrophic happens in your life. I mean, which with COVID and everything that's happened, I mean, obviously it everybody's experienced it, so nobody is exempt from experiencing anything, so anything can happen at any moment, and just being financially prepared for it is a step in keeping everything else together, your mental well-being. I mean, when you don't have money to pay something that comes up unexpected, and then able also enables me to work and stuff a little bit more than I would without, which is definitely good for overall well-being and satisfaction and quality of life. So being able to work a little extra and actually make some income that I can save, and just makes everything feel a lot better.
Awesome. Well, Spencer, thank you so much for your time this morning. Feel free if you want to listen to some of these FAQs, and maybe you can put your 2 cents in if you want, but if not, I don't want to keep you, but just thank you so much for kind of sharing your insight and some of how you used an ABLE account, and just some practical advice for individuals. So I'm going to start tackling these FAQs. Thank everybody who's put in questions so far and put questions during the registration process. And so I'm going to do my best to cover as many of these. I think, like I said, we've probably gotten over 70 something questions now. And so we're going to start because it's that time of year, right? It's tax filing time. You're starting to get your W-2s in, your 1099s maybe. And so people have the question, do I have to file taxes because I have an ABLE United account? Or maybe I have to report an ABLE United account. So just high level, each ABLE United account is treated separately, and each will receive separate tax documents. So if you're a parent and maybe you have multiple children that have ABLE accounts, or maybe you're listening on as a support coordinator or a service provider, and you're overseeing multiple accounts, we always suggest seeking the tax advisor for your unique situation. But typically what would happen for an ABLE account is that everybody should receive a 5498 QA. That's a document that we submit to the IRS stating that this individual has an ABLE account. Here was their account balance, and here's why they're eligible. If you recall, during the registration process, we ask, what type of eligible disability you have, and what makes you eligible. Either you have a diagnosis prior to age 26, you're self-certifying that, or you're currently receiving SSI, SSDI, but regardless of your age. And so that's important to think. If you make a withdrawal during the calendar year, you're going to get a 1099 QA. What that is it's a statement that says you had, for example, $1,000 in withdrawals. So whatever your total withdrawals were for the entire 2022 calendar year. Of that, how much of it was earnings? These are investment and savings accounts. We encourage individuals to check out ableunited.com. There's a savings and investment tab where they can learn about our FDIC product, our predefined portfolio options, as well as some historical performance. So on that 1099, they'll show, let's say of that $1,000 you contribute or took out, maybe $50 of it was earnings. As long as you have $1,000 of qualified disability expenses, which we'll get to because there was a lot of questions on what is a qualified disability expense. But as long as you had $1,000 in qualified disability expenses for that calendar year, then there's no filing you have to do. You don't have to pay any earnings or interest or taxes on the earnings portion of that 1099 form. It's more for your record to let you know that we have let the IRS know that you had one of these ABLE accounts. And so with that, I want to tackle some of these qualified disability expenses because we get probably our number one question, which I should have asked Spencer, is, what are the questions we often see? And it's usually what happens if an individual passes, and then what can I actually use the funds for? And so a qualified disability expense is very broad. The Treasury, which oversees the IRS, kind of provided 7 or so broad buckets, including housing, medical, transportation, oversight and monitoring, financial, legal, and even basic living expenses. So if you think of grocery shopping or buying clothes, all those are qualified disability expenses. And so we usually receive a lot of specific questions like, can I use this for a trip or a vacation? Can I use it to put a down payment on a vehicle? Or maybe, can I buy gifts for a loved one? And so at the end of the day, the qualifying statement that the IRS put out is the funds have to relate to the individual with a disability. So it has to be somehow tied to them. And it's going to be used to help improve or maintain their health, independence, or quality of life. And that last part, quality of life, is pretty broad. And actually the regs say it's to be construed broadly. So when we think of, for example, the one example they did give is, what if you had an individual who needed help navigating their community or using their phone to help with communication? Then a cell phone and a cell phone plan would be a qualified disability expense. But that quality of life is key because that can be interpreted very broadly, whether that be a vacation, going to Disney, I hear that quite a bit, or other theme parks. Spencer, I know he's a big cruise guy. I think part of his job is he's a travel agent. And so using the funds for that is a quality of life and encourage, right? So a lot of people use an ABLE account for those. The tricky one is giving the money away. So purchasing a gift for somebody else most likely would not be a qualified disability expense. So keep that in mind. We usually tell individuals when they do make a withdrawal from an ABLE account, keep those receipts and documentation in case the IRS or Social Security, if somebody is on supplemental security income, ever comes asking, hey, what did you use these funds for? So one of the questions here I'm looking now as we go through these questions is, are you allowed to use your ABLE card or your ABLE account to pay for streaming services like Amazon Prime, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Netflix? I mean, there's a ton of them now. And that's a great question, right? Is how does that expense for that individual help improve their quality of life? Maybe it's expanding their horizons because they like to watch documentaries, and so it could be educational purposes. Or maybe it's just a quality of life where I'm getting entertainment value and this is helping me feel like everybody else. So it's justifying. We're not going to ask as the program, and really the only time it will come in is if the IRS were to audit you, and you would have to say, okay, what are my qualified disability expenses? Approve of the IRS to that. So that's an interesting question, right? So let's look at some of these other questions here. And I want to dig into the different types of public benefits. Yeah, we're going to save on that. Do you report anything to the IRS? We talked about that. Spencer, do you have some comments on qualified disability expenses?
Yes, actually, I do. So I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that, but from my own personal experience dealing with any accountant people, any IRS information, a lot of times the IRS people, the accountant people, they don't know what able is even, so that's been the biggest thing as well, talking to people about this, especially financial people. They're not aware of this program. So for myself to make it a little bit as far as the qualified quality of life experiences, try to use the able to cover any of the stuff that is obvious. So any of my bills that are more obvious than the quality of life, since that's open to interpretation. So as you were talking about, I like to travel since I'm a travel agent. A lot of those expenses I try to pay off throughout the year with the money that I'm not deducting from able. So I'll use able to pay for the bills that I need to that are related to my disability, housing, phone, and stuff like that, because it's a lot easier to justify or tell somebody, I'm on Medicaid and I'm spending my money on, travel and stuff like that. It's a little different. So, people might be a little biased even in their own way of looking at it. I've had somebody that I was explaining able to say, well, you're able to take all these trips and do this kind of stuff, you're taking advantage of the system and everything, and they're not aware of what able is. And there's definitely a public perception and stuff that might be associated with it, as well as me taking advantage of the system or something like that, just because they're unaware. And that was actually surprising to me, to have that as something, not living with a disability, bring that up to me and everything. So that's something I've encountered. So in that particular situation, I am using the able to cover those other expenses that are definitely more obvious as far as what it's being spent on. So just a unique perspective on that, that I wasn't aware of when I was out in the community. So talking about this. So
All right. Well, that's some insight, personal knowledge there on how you treat the account. So yeah, so everybody's a little bit different on what a qualified disability expense is, and what may be appropriate for you may not be appropriate for somebody else. So keep those in mind. Going through some of these other questions here, let's go ahead and talk about the public benefits, right? Because that is probably one of the biggest key advantages of an ABLE account, is being able to save more than $2,000 and keep your eligibility for supplemental security income, Medicaid, or even the FAFSA application. So when ABLE came out, they used this term, ABLE accounts are not subject to federally means tested program limits. So a federally means tested, so it's a federal program usually, or some kind of federal state program that has some kind of resource limit, how much somebody can have income-wise, or how much money they can have on hand. And so ABLE says that those resources, how much cash somebody can have, money in the ABLE account, aren't subject to those limits. Primarily the biggest ones that we work with are supplemental security income. That is a monthly cash benefit that helps pay for individuals with significant disabilities, or some other type of, whether it be elderly or pregnant women, who help pay for their basic living expenses, like for food, housing, and clothing. And so with that program, it limits individuals to $2,000. Money in the ABLE account doesn't count towards that $2,000 limit up to the first $100,000 in the ABLE account. Once you get to that amount, then anything above that would count towards your SSI limit of $2,000. So keep that in mind. Also, if money is taken out of the ABLE account and held on to past the end of the month. So as I mentioned, we're coming up at the end of January. So if I had an ABLE account and I'm on SSI and I took out, let's say, $1,000 to pay my rent or mortgage payment in February, and I held it through the end of January into February, and then I used that $1,000 I took out of my ABLE account to pay for my housing related expense, then Social Security would say, Well, that's a housing related expense, although qualified, that's what SSI is really for. And so that $1,000 would actually count against me as a resource for Social Security purposes, only for individuals on SSI. SSDI, that's an earned benefit or survival benefits from a parent. Those are earned, not impacted on ABLE whatsoever. So that's something to keep in mind. That, or if you're using the money for something that's not qualified and you're retaining it past the end of the month. So the Social Security asked and you said, oh, I took that money out last month and I'm using it to go gambling, not going to be qualified and most likely would penalize you. So ways to go around that for individuals on SSI: have the ABLE account pay the housing related expense directly. So great ways to do that. So let's go back to these questions here. Medicaid's different, and this kind of ties into our probably second most frequently asked question is, unfortunately, the statistics still show 10 out of 10 people are going to die. It's something we all have to face eventually. And so questions are, if I pass, or if my child or loved one who has an ABLE account passes, what happens to the account? And really, there's two parts. If you're not on Medicaid, simply those funds, you can list what we call a successor owner. That has to be a sibling who also qualifies for ABLE. In those situations, you could have the funds transferred to that sibling to their ABLE account directly. If that doesn't apply to you, instead it would go to the estate of the beneficiary after all outstanding qualified disability expenses are paid, including funeral and burial. So let's say, for example, I'm 80, I had an ABLE account, there was $250,000 in it, pass away, that would go to my estate, be subject to probably probate, and be distributed to my heirs, if I didn't have a sibling who also qualified. However, if I'm on Medicaid and I pass away, after all outstanding qualified disability expenses, Medicaid estate recovery may come in and then take whatever's left of my estate or whatever Medicaid expenses. But Medicaid estate is unique in that an individual has to be 55 or older for that to come into effect. So if in the situation, if I was an 80-year-old who was on Medicaid who passed away and had an ABLE account, then my estate could be subject to Medicaid estate recovery to help recoup or offset the cost of Medicaid. If I'm younger, let's say I was 45 and I passed away, and I was on Medicaid, Medicaid estate recovery does not exist. So that's something to keep in mind, especially as somebody ages and they have an ABLE account and they hit 55 or older and there's a significant balance. Think about ways to spin that down or not, and then it would go to Medicaid estate recovery. So that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about financial planning and how this kind of plays a part in your overall planning of life, right? And how an ABLE account works in that. So that's high level how an account would work if an individual passes and has an ABLE account. So hopefully that answered about 4 or 5 questions I had on, excuse me, what happens if an individual passes away. So usually goes to their estate. Their estate may be subject to Medicaid recovery if 55 or older. So something to think about. All right, let's talk about funding the ABLE account. Got some questions on, well, one question was, do you have special needs trust account? Unfortunately, no. This is a state-run program where I'm a state employee. This program is run by the state. And so we do not offer special needs trust accounts. You would have to seek an attorney to do so, most likely an elder law attorney who specializes in special needs trust. So it's something to think about. If I have an ABLE account, should I notify Social Security if I have an ABLE account? If you're on SSI, that monthly check? Yes, you should notify them. They want to know. We report to Social Security Administration monthly on all account activity, so they're going to know regardless. But they want to specifically know when you take money out of the ABLE account and retain it past the end of the month, what are you using those funds for? How can I use supplemental security income to buy a house? That kind of ties into contributions to an ABLE account. Anybody can contribute to an ABLE account. So if I wanted to, and Spencer, was like, hey, it's my birthday, send me some money, I could put money directly into his into his ABLE account. So friends, family, acquaintances, organizations, and businesses. So maybe you have a church that wants to do a fundraiser on your behalf. They can contribute those proceeds directly to your ABLE account, and that way it doesn't count as income towards you. So it counts as a qualified gift. With that, it is limited to $17,000 per calendar year in contributions from all sources. So if mom and dad contribute or grandparents contribute, let's say $10,000, the most that could go into that account for the calendar year is an additional $7,000, so $17,000 total. As Spencer mentioned, he's working, and individuals not tied to a work-related retirement account or don't have a retirement account can actually contribute above that $17,000 up to the single poverty, the federal poverty limit of a single household income, which is $13,590, or lesser of their income, whatever is less. So if you make $13,000 or more, you can actually contribute into a separate bucket called Able to Work. We talked a little bit about taxes. Once again, I'm not a financial advisor or tax advisor, or even a legal attorney. So in your situations, but generally, as long as you can qualify that you have qualified disability expenses, then there's no reason to have to file taxes on an ABLE account. How do I get an ABLE debit card, and how does it work? So visit ableunited.com. If you have it, on the bottom left, there's a kind of a debit card example. It gives you some further explanation. But if you already have an Able United account, you can log in, and on the bottom right, usually of the little panel of the home page, there's a link to the Able card. It's through a company called TrueLink Financial. It will be tied directly to your Able account. It's a separate enrollment process. They'll send you a card after, I think it takes 7 to 10 business days, and then it will be tied to your Able account. And what you can do, it's a reloadable debit card. So you have to actually fund it first, but you would go to your transactions tab and make a distribution to that connected Able account, or you can call customer service and they can help you with it. And then you can use that debit card anywhere Visa debit cards are accepted. So I get a monthly report that shows we have to date a little close to about 9,500 open accounts that are active and open, and over 10,000 have enrolled. And about 5 to 10% of those accounts have a prepaid debit card, so about 900 or so. And I get a report monthly that says, hey, this is how people are using their debit card. Now, I don't get exact transactions, I get broad categories. So, for example, I see about 10% of people are using the funds on their prepaid debit card for Amazon or Walmart, online shopping. So paying those basic living expenses. I also see people going out to eat, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, fast food. But I also see medical. I see, dental practices, people using it to help pay for their dental expenditures or other expenses maybe not covered by their health insurance or Medicaid. So that's pretty cool. But go log onto your account, or at least visit ableunited.com, and on the bottom left, you can learn more. Or if you log into your account, there you can load it in. Questions about buying a car with an Able account if you're on Medicaid benefits. Spencer alluded to, the great thing about Medicaid is they do allow individuals to own a car or their house, or those are allowable expenditures. And then you can just say, hey, Able account. When you log in or even call customer service, you can go to the transaction tab and request a check to be sent to you or a third party. You can actually go to our website as well under our resources tab. There's a forms and publications link. We can set up systematic withdrawals. So maybe you want to pay your rent, you know how much it's going to be each month, or your mortgage payment, and you can go online and say, or set it out, submit the form and say, each month, I want $1,000 to go out to be paid to my landlord, to my mortgage company. And then it's a set up and forget it as long as you have money in your able account to do that. So, and same with funding your account. You can actually set up systematic contributions. And same under that transactions tab, you can actually edit under that tab current systematic contributions. There was a question on, I'm already paying this monthly, or I'm contributing monthly, but I want to edit that amount, add more to it or less, and you can do that online to come out. And usually people do that through a connected bank account as well. And that's another question we get is, what if my bank account changes? Can I go online? Yes. So after when you first enroll in an ABLE account, you do have to connect a bank account, but maybe your bank changes, or maybe you have another bank account, and you can add those under when you log in under the settings tab as well. So that's important things to keep in mind. All right. Do you have to submit expenses for home repairs to be paid out of an ABLE account? Good question. There is no pre-authorization to withdraw money from the ABLE account. When you first enroll into the ABLE account program, it does take us about 30 days to verify your identity, make sure you are who you say you are. After that point, withdrawals can be made in 2 to 5 business days, maybe a little longer if you request a check to be sent. But that's the quickest way. You don't have to pre-authorize or get pre-approval to make money withdrawals from your account. You can do it at any time. And you can even call customer service Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time, and they'll be able to actually assist you over the phone or do the withdrawal on your behalf. I actually listen into customer service calls and hear people all the time saying, hey, can you send me a check for $1,000? And then our customer service walks through people and executes that on their behalf. Something else that's unique, and this kind of ties into some questions about what are the investment options? Do you have any advice on how I should invest? Unfortunately, I can't. So high level, we have different investment products depending on the needs of individuals. We have what we call pre-designed portfolios. These are risk-based tolerant type of portfolios made of mutual funds. We have a conservative, moderate, and growth. The big difference between those is the moderate and growth are going to be more invested in the market, right? They're going to be more invested into our Vanguard US stock option, as well as our international stock option, which is through BlackRock. And so those are kind of pre-designed, and depending on the market, it could fluctuate quite a bit. So probably 2-3 years ago, before COVID and the aftermath of that, people were making 10-15% annually. Since then, the market's been a lot more volatile. And so that's why we also offer a money market account as well as an FDIC product. Now, questions about the money market account is unique, right? Since this is a state-run product, we're actually able to offer you the state of Florida's money market account. That's what I call it. It's called Prime, and it's kind of what state agencies use, local city and governments. You might use this to kind of put excess funds in a very low risk but higher return than a savings account type of product. So it's not FDIC insured, but knowing that your state is putting money in it, excess funds, then it's a little more secure than, but it's not FDIC insured. That rate's determined through Florida Prime's website. I think right now it's a little over 4.5% annually is what it's returning. Now our FDIC product is a predetermined amount. It is based on the federal funds upper limit minus 15 basis points. That's technical jargon. And so if you hear about, oh, the feds are meeting or they're talking about raising the rate, that rate is what determines the FDIC amount. So if you think a few years ago, I think it was at 0.25%. So people were earning less than 0.25% annually in their FDIC product. But since then, the feds have aggressively risen that over the last couple of years. And now I think the FDIC product's making 4.5%. So always welcome individuals. Check out the performance under Able United. It's under the savings tab. You can click performance and see what last month's numbers were. And that kind of gives you an idea, as well as our program disclosure document. You can find that in the bottom of our website, or just go to ableunited.com/PDPA. So program disclosure and participation agreement. That gives you the nitty gritty as well, and also gives you some additional details on our investment products. All right. So hopefully that answers a lot of your investment and savings questions. We talked a little bit about the public benefit programs. Remember, supplemental security income is based on individuals that have a significant disability. Social Security disability insurance is based on somebody's work history. It's an earned benefit, and they don't care what you have in an ABLE account. So that's important to remember. Going back to contributions, tax deductibility for friends and family that donate. Good question. So if somebody contributes to your ABLE account, it is not a donation. So you're not a 501c3 or nonprofit. So there is no federal deduction or tax deduction that an individual can take for contributing to somebody's ABLE account. However, as I mentioned, we are the state of Florida's ABLE program, but each state can set up and run their own ABLE program. And some states have a state income tax. For example, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania passed a law that allows individuals to reduce state income taxes for contributions to their state's ABLE programs. So if you do move it out of the state, because there was a question about if I move out of the state or if I have an ABLE program with another state and I want to roll it to Able United or roll out of Able United, how does that work? And so if you move out of the state, you only have to be an Able United to apply. You only have to be a Florida resident at the time you apply. If you move out of the state, you can take Able United with you. How will we encourage individuals? Check out what your state's ABLE program is, because there may be unique tax benefits or other benefits for being in that state's ABLE program. Of course, I'm going to tout Florida as being the best for Floridians because we don't have annual fees. There's no setup fee. You can roll out of our program and there's no fees. And we don't even charge for checks. Really, the fee is tied to if you want a paper statement, that's a $10 annual fee to get quarterly paper statements. Or if you want that prepaid card we talked about, that costs $2.50 per month. So important to know that. But we're talking about rollover. So let's say you're with another program. There's quite a few national programs. About 20 of the states have decided to open for national enrollment. So let's say you're with Virginia's program is ABLE now, and you want to roll that over to Florida's ABLE program. So if you, once again, visit ableunited.com under our resources tab or call customer service and they can help you. You can get what they call a direct rollover. And that would allow us to get the necessary information from you. You would set up the Able United account. We would reach out to that other state's program and have them transfer those money directly into your new Able United account. Alternatively, you can do what they call an indirect rollover. That's where you would go to your Able account you're currently with, cash everything out, learn how much of that is going to be earnings, open the Able United account, and then put those funds into it. There's some additional paperwork with that. We're going to have to know how much of it was earnings, how much you contributed in that calendar year from that other ABLE program. Now, let's say you're with Able United and you move to a different state, and you want to utilize that new state's ABLE program. you would go onto their website or call that ABLE program's customer service to get whatever rollover form you need to roll out of the ABLE United program. So check with that new state. Good question. All right. So hopefully that tackles some of these questions. Here we go. This talks about, this is new to me. Well, thank you for joining. Hopefully you're here today. I want to start an account for my daughter. So how much do I need? And what kind of information do I need to start an account? Great question. ableunited.com. That's where you would go to enroll. So you're not going to go to your local bank. If you are with some investment advisors, they may have access to an ABLE account that's with another state that's doing investment setup. But your local bank, for example, most likely not heard about ABLE accounts. So you would have to go to ableunited.com. We're going to need some identifying information about you if you're opening it on behalf of somebody. We're going to need to know that person with a disability, their information as well. You're going to need so social, date of birth, an email address. When you established all that and we asked you some questions about, what color was your vehicle, or do you have a mortgage with a certain company? We identify your identity that way. Then you go into a section where you actually open the investment and save or invest. You connect the connected bank account, so routing or bank account number. Or we also use Plaid, which lets you log in and directly connect it that way, so it's more secure. And then it's $25 to get started. You can do that in any of the available options. You get to pick and choose where you want that $25 to go. And that's it. It takes about 15 minutes or so to 20 minutes to get established. There's no paperwork to upload, so I'm not, my customer service team is not there to verify that you meet the disability requirements, nor, that type of detail. So you keep that information. What's also unique is that an individual can only have one ABLE account nationwide, so keep that in mind. But anybody, just about anybody can open this account on behalf of somebody. So they can give you permission to do that, but typically it's the person chooses not to or doesn't have the capacity to establish an ABLE account. Then a parent, grandparent, guardian, sibling, spouse could open this on their behalf. And a power of attorney form we do make available on our website that's tied directly to the ABLE United account. And that's an alternative way as well. So pretty broad on who can establish this account. All right. Questions on, does my disorder qualify? We have an eligibility wizard on our website as well. Typically, I tell individuals if they have a diagnosis of a significant disability that's going to impact their daily living, and that diagnosis occurred prior to 26, regardless of their age now, then most likely they're going to qualify. And so that's important to know. All right, is there a way to contribute to ABLE to work if your check varies weekly depending on hours given at work? Good question. So as I mentioned, an ABLE to work contribution, just to reiterate, is basically a separate bucket that allows people to contribute more than the annual contribution limit, but then also lets them use the ABLE account as a retirement account and potentially can save, take advantages of like the saver's credit if they're not earning a lot. You can set that up to be systematic, or you can go in and make a contribution as you get paid. But it is limited to how much you earn, or $13,590, whatever is less. So it's important to keep in mind. What is the overall account maximum you can have? As I mentioned, individuals on SSI can have up to 100,000 before it starts counting towards that resource limit. If you're not on SSI, or maybe you're not worried about that check, these accounts can actually grow up to 418,000. If you get to that, tell me what your secret is. Let me in on your business, because that's a lot of money. But if you get to 418,000, then you can no longer contribute to the ABLE account, but it can continue to grow tax-free. So that's important to know. Of course, with our current limits, it's going to take you 20+ years to get to that. But good question. All right. If enables will be used to pay for housing or their fair share, are there timing considerations for the distribution? Usually, like as I mentioned, it takes 2 to 7 business days to process a request. So if you're doing a check request and you want that payment to, for example, to hit by the 3rd of each month, you could do a systematic withdrawal, and you probably want it to come out 2 to 7 business days before that date. So for example, setting it up today or actually yesterday probably would have been better for it to get by February 2nd in that situation. So work with customer service and they can be able to help you with that. But setting it up systematically, then you don't have to worry. All right, here's a question. I set up an account for my autistic 5-year-old son. Can I withdraw money from the account anytime I want or just add to it? Right? Once the account is set up, you can withdraw at any time. Usually people are savers. Historically, our average account balance is about $7,400. About 80% of the people we see are savers. They make one withdrawal or none in a calendar year. And the other 20% make withdrawals either more than once per month or even more frequently than that. And so, but no, there is no timing of when you can make a withdrawal. Some people are just using it to save, and some people are saying, no, I'm putting money in. A special needs trust, and we'll talk about that next, funds my ABLE account, and then I use the ABLE account for daily living expenses. And the great thing is, you're starting young, so that's great. But then use it as you need. Maybe it's extra therapy sessions, or maybe there's a cool summer camp, and you can use the funds to help pay for that. So that's pretty cool. I need more explanation on how to invest my money. I lost money because I didn't understand safest investment option. I can't provide you investment options. I can just tell you that the riskiest range. So the FDIC option is the least riskiest, followed by the money market, and then our conservative, moderate, and growth or pre-design, and then our actual individual investment options. So U.S. stock is going to be the next one, or U.S. bond, and then U.S. stock. And then our international stock would be our most riskiest investment option. So there's a lot of great resources out there. And even the government puts out one. I think it's just type investments government, and I think it's investopedia.gov, and they give you some great idea. This is a difficult question here because I get this quite frequently, knowing that, in some of the retirement areas I talk to, or with individuals who might be elderly, and they're worried about their child saying, hey, I might be passing away before my child does. So what happens to this account? So the question is, I'm my son's primary caretaker. He does not have the mental capacity to make decisions. Who can handle this account if I pass away? And that is a question a lot of people have to face. And so I encourage individuals to find who that it is. Maybe it's the public guardian or private guardian route. Maybe there's a sibling or a trusted family member. I'm getting a note that we're at time. I have so many good questions. So that's a difficult decision. So I encourage individuals to seek resources in their neighborhood. And you might have to go the public or private guardian. But the good news, if you have a trusted person, then they can just fill out the power of attorney form and take over the account. And as I got noted, that is kind of it for our time. I know I could go on and on about ABLE accounts, almost like it's my job, because it is. But I encourage individuals, if we didn't get to your questions and answers, reach out to us on social media. Shoot an email to info@ableunited.com. Maybe you want to have some more one-on-one, and you can actually go to our website under our Contact Us page. You can schedule a one-off meeting with me for 15 minutes to discuss whatever you may have. And the best bet, if you can't find it on our website, call customer service 9 to 6, Monday to Friday. Usually our wait times are less than 30 seconds. So it's not like dealing with some of these other companies. So I encourage you to do that. But I want to say, knowledge is power, and we appreciate each of you for taking time out of your day out of this morning to learn more about this important topic, because I know I'm passionate. You heard from Spencer, he's passionate. Until we meet again, stay tuned to our website and social media. This will be posted on our YouTube page, so youtube.com/Able United. Great place to go to see all of our previously recorded webinars, and we look forward for you to join us again. Until next time, you all have a wonderful and great 2023. Thank you.